Hi friends, in this video we're going to do another interpretation of the song Old Man by Neil Young, and if you've been watching the videos, we've done a number of interpretations of this particular song already, each time going to a less common interpretation but maybe more interesting. And in this video I'm going to go over a very not talked about interpretation, something I don't hear people discussing at all, but maybe it's the most real interpretation, and we'll dig into the poetry shortly. And the reason I say it's the most real is because, well, the quote-unquote official interpretation, which is Neil Young is on record saying that this song was written after he had this conversation with the old man who worked on Neil Young's ranch. So there is a quote-unquote official interpretation, but that I think stops short of the truth, because most people hear that and think, okay, fine, it was some conversation and it was an old man and Neil Young wrote a song. So simplistic, right? Nothing's that simplistic. People don't dig further. There's another question to ask. What was the conversation? What did they talk about? What were the takeaways? What happened there? That's the real question. Okay, and Neil Young, I don't think he's that open about it, except in some lyrics of this song. So I think that this song is a song of Neil Young's loneliness, and I'll show you why I think that. Because first, we do know some things about this old man. He's a ranch keeper who lived on the ranch with his wife. So the guy had a wife and he had a lasting marriage. We also know that Neil Young just recently got a divorce at that time. And so here I highlighted some of the lyrics in red. Okay, 24 and there's so much more, live alone in a paradise. Okay, that's Neil Young alone in his ranch. That's how I interpret that. By the way, if I'm wrong in some of these lines, do comment. In some of my other reaction videos, some people have commented quite insightfully on some details of songs that I've never seen before. So please comment if you know. But right now it feels like he's talking about the paradise, talking about this ranch. That makes me think of two right here. Okay, he's lonely there. There's nothing to do on this ranch. On the one hand, you can think, oh yeah, it's so cool. He's a hippy dippy guy and he bought a ranch. He's whatever you want to think, outdoorsy or whatever. He's cool. But for a 24-year-old guy who should be out, perhaps meeting women, he's lonely to be on the ranch. There's so much land and not that many people around, and he's stuck talking to the people who work there, which you can say that's cool, but also there's just no, he's like he deserted on a desert island, right? Well, it's lonely there. Anyway, love lost such a cost. I think he's talking about his divorce. Give me things that don't get lost. Again, he wants kind of longing for something more lasting, more real, more meaningful. And I think it's actually exacerbated by being on the farm, like on the ranch. Like if he's out having fun with friends, those feelings sort of aren't as forefront. But when you have all the time and just yourself, you start feeling sorry for yourself, right? And it's kind of this sad cycle, which you can just take yourself out of that situation that reinforces that sad cycle. But keep in mind, here, when he's writing the song, he's 24. The song gets released when he's 25. So, he's a young guy and he doesn't really understand a lot of how the brain works, how psychology works. We see him as this deep guy, right? He wrote all this meaningful music, but he's just a young guy here. So a lot of it, he just doesn't understand what's happening in his mind in a way. And so if we keep going down the lyrics, there's other lyrics that point to loneliness. Very obviously, indirectly, like, I need someone to love me the whole day through. I mean, that's literal, right? Almost. And so there's a lot of lyrics that just point to loneliness and sadness. So what will be interesting for people watching to comment is, do you agree with me with this interpretation? Because some of the lyrics are pretty directly they directly point to the feeling of loneliness. And there is this other question of like, we wouldn't question a person like buying a range, because usually the response is like, wow, that's so cool, wow, what a change, wow, how interesting, right? People, that's how they respond. But at the same time, it may be, today everything is controversial, but it may be a counterpoint. Like, it may be I'm playing devil's advocate of saying like, hey, this is a 24-year-old guy, doesn't need to spend too much time on the range. He needs to get out and live his life a little bit, have a little bit faster pace to life, not get away from life on the range, but get back into life. And so there's a million ways to look at that. People will say, oh, no, you're wrong, whatever. But at the same time, you can also look at it like, hey, he's only 24. I know he's smart. I know he's soulful kind of a guy, right? But that doesn't prevent you from making errors in life, like buying a ranch where you're lonely all day and then you have nothing to do. And then you talk to the people who work there and look at their life and compare yourself, and then you have, very little except your own inner voices, which reinforce, feeling sad for yourself, which, if you're going to feel sad for yourself, you're going to feel more sad for yourself. It's a snowball like that. But if you get yourself out of that situation, start doing things, you start to forget about feeling sad for yourself. It's sometimes that simple, but when you're 24, you don't quite realize that mechanism at work. And also, to be fair, a lot of people go through life not recognizing that mechanism at work. Some people feel sorry for themselves all the way through life. But that's just, whatever. That's actually interesting to comment, because this is, I think, real life stuff that people deal with all the time. The loneliness, the dealing with your own negative self-talk, making errors, like buying a ranch. Perhaps it's an error. So this is all for us to discuss, actually. This is interesting because there is no answer. But my feeling is that if this isn't the main interpretation, well, what did he talk to that range keeper about, right? He probably talked about life and love and what happens in life. And that's kind of what we're discussing in this video in some sense. And so because this is an open-ended kind of a topic, this is a really interesting thing for us to have discussion in the comments about. So check out the comments, and of course, check out my previous interpretations of his music and see if, if we dig a little deeper and we kind of get to know the young Neil Young, maybe it's a little interesting, a little bit more insightful than what we've had about the song before, or maybe you knew all this. But anyway, leave a comment, let me know what you think. And of course, as you know, I also try to write music, and Neil Young is one of my greatest inspirations for writing music. When I first heard his music, I was like, oh my God, like this is just amazing. And of course, I try to write music. I'm nowhere near Neil Young, but I try, and I take his inspiration. So if you want to check out my original music, I would love that actually, and I would appreciate it. So I'll have the links to my original music in the comments, in the description. You can't miss it if you try. So check it out, leave a comment. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.